The clamour of Mama Rosa's diner hit like a wave. Forks clinking on plates, the sizzle of eggs on the griddle, and the bachata remix pulsing from the ancient jukebox. Asani Reyes wove through the chaos like a pro, her hips swaying instinctively to the rhythm as she balanced a tray laden with steaming plates and a fresh pot of coffee. Her skin glowed under the fluorescent lights, a warm caramel hue from her black father and Puerto Rican mother, framed by wild curls tied back in a hasty ponytail. At 25, she'd mastered the art of endurance. Double shifts to fund her stalled nursing dreams and keep her abuela's medical bills at bay. "Apúrate, mija!" the cook yelled from the kitchen. Asani flashed a grin, grabbing the order for table 9. Her apron pockets bulged with crumpled receipts and spare change, a testament to her hustle. She spun toward the corner booth, where a lone man sat, absorbed in his phone. He was strikingly out of place amid the blue-collar crowd, impeccable charcoal suit, polished shoes, and an aura of quiet command that made the air around him feel heavier. She didn't see the uneven tile until it was too late. The coffee pot tilted, sending a cascade of scalding liquid straight onto his lapel. It soaked through the silk shirt, dark stains spreading like veins. "Dios mío!" Asani yelped, setting the tray down with a clatter and snatching napkins from her pocket. "I'm so sorry. Let me—" The man looked up slowly, unfazed. His eyes were obsidian, sharp and unreadable, set in a face chiseled with precision. High cheekbones, a faint scar tracing his jaw like a whispered secret. Korean, she thought, noting the subtle accent in his posture alone. He exuded power, the kind that didn't need to shout. "It's nothing," he said, voice a low timbre that cut through the din, accented but flawless English. "Nothing? That shirt looks like it belongs in a museum." Asani knelt slightly, dabbing at the fabric, her fingers brushing his chest accidentally. Heat rose in her cheeks, not just from embarrassment. Up close, he smelled of sandalwood and rain, and his gaze held hers with an intensity that made her pulse stutter. He placed a hand over hers to stop her, his touch firm yet gentle, sending a spark up her arm. "Really, I've survived worse." She straightened, tucking a curl behind her ear, suddenly aware of how her uniform hugged her curves after a long shift. "At least let me cover your meal. And the new coffee, on me." A ghost of a smile curved his lips, softening the scar. Generous, but unnecessary, Asani. Her name tag, right. She laughed, a melodic sound that turned heads. "And you're Jeon Kim?" She'd caught it when he ordered, minimal words, maximal presence. "Jeon," he confirmed, standing with fluid grace. He towered over her, broad-shouldered and poised. From his inner pocket, he drew a sleek black card embossed in silver. Jeon Kim, a single phone number below. "For the dry cleaning," he said, pressing it into her palm. His fingers lingered a fraction too long, warm against her skin. "I won't bill you," she teased, but her voice came out breathier than planned. "I know." His eyes lingered on her face, tracing her full lips, the freckles across her nose. Then he nodded once and strode out, the bell jingling in his wake. Asani stood frozen, card clutched tight. Her heart raced with a mix of adrenaline and something electric, forbidden. Who was he? And why did spilling coffee feel like fate's twisted introduction? She pocketed the card, telling herself it was just curiosity. But deep down, she knew better. The clock above the diner counter ticked past 10 p.m., and Asani Reyes wiped down the last sticky tabletop with a sigh. Her muscles screamed from the endless hustle, but the wad of tips in her pocket promised a small victory. Enough for Abuela's meds this month. Outside, the New York night buzzed with distant sirens and the glow of street vendors hawking empanadas. She untied her apron, folding Gion's card inside it like a secret she wasn't ready to discard. Pushing through the door, she shivered against the autumn chill, zipping her faded denim jacket. The subway was a 4-block trek, dimly lit and unpredictable this late. She started walking, mind replaying the afternoon's spill, the way his touch had lingered, warm and electric. A low purr cut through the noise, a black Mercedes idling at the curb, sleek as a panther. The window hummed down, revealing Gian in the driver's seat, his dark eyes finding hers instantly. Asani, need a lift? Her steps faltered. Gian? What are you doing here? Couldn't sleep, he said simply, as if staking out a diner was normal. And I owe you for that coffee. Get in, it's cold. Hesitation warred with curiosity. Strangers and luxury cars weren't her scene, but something in his steady gaze felt safe. She slid into the passenger seat, enveloped by heated leather and his subtle cologne, cedar with a hint of spice. He pulled away smoothly, navigating the traffic with effortless control. Silence stretched, comfortable yet charged. Asani broke it first. So, import-export, right? Must keep you busy, lurking outside diners. He glanced at her, a rare smile cracking his composure. Family obligations. It's complicated. What about you? Waitressing full-time? Temporary, she said, gazing out at the blurring lights. Saving for nursing school, my abuela's sick. Diabetes. Mom works 2 jobs too. We're a team. Admirable. His voice softened. Family is everything. In Korea we say gajok. It binds us, even when it pulls too tight. Asani turned intrigued. You miss Seoul? The food? The culture? Sometimes. Man-do over burgers any day. He chuckled, low and resonant. But New York's energy, it's addictive. Like you, vibrant, unfiltered. Heat bloomed in her cheeks. Their hands brushed on the gear shift as he turned a corner, fingers grazing in a spark that made her breath hitch. She didn't pull away immediately, savoring the warmth, the unspoken pull. Too soon, he parked outside her brownstone. Rain began to patter on the windshield. Thank you, she murmured, their faces close in the dim light. His scar seemed softer up close, a vulnerability amid the strength. Anytime, Asani. His gaze dropped to her lips for a heartbeat, intense enough to steal the air. She exited reluctantly, the door clicking shut like a promise broken. From her stoop, she watched him drive off, heart pounding. Unseen in the shadows, a tattooed figure noted the license plate, whispering into a phone. Boss, he's got a weakness now. Asani's phone buzzed against her thigh while she was still in her uniform, wiping down the last booth. Gion's message was simple. Dinner tomorrow, 8 p.m. Wear something red. I'll come for you. Her stomach flipped, red. He'd noticed the way the diner's overhead lights caught the crimson polish on her toes, or maybe the silk scarf she sometimes tied around her wrist. Either way, he'd paid attention. She typed back one word, okay, before she could overthink it. The following night, she stood in front of her cracked full-length mirror in a borrowed scarlet dress that clung like a second skin, the neckline dipping just enough to make her feel reckless. She left her curls loose, dark waves spilling over her shoulders. When Jiyeon knocked, she opened the door and watched his pupils dilate. For a heartbeat, he didn't speak. Then, "You're trying to ruin me." She laughed, nerves sparking. "You asked for red." "I did." He stepped closer, close enough that she could feel the heat radiating off his suit. "I underestimated how dangerous that would be." The drive was quiet, charged. Every red light turned his profile into sharp angles and shadow. Every glance he stole felt like a touch. When they arrived at the secluded Koreatown restaurant, the host led them to a private alcove screened by dark wooden slats and hanging plants. A single low lamp bathed the table in amber. Jiyeon ordered without looking at the menu. Bulgogi, galbi, a spread of banchan that arrived like offerings. He slid the small grill between them and began cooking the meat himself. Precise movements, sleeves rolled to reveal corded forearms and the edge of a tattoo she hadn't noticed before. A stylized dragon curling toward his wrist. Asani reached for a piece of kimchi. Their fingers brushed, deliberate this time. Neither pulled away. "Tell me something real," he said, voice quieter than the soft guitar drifting from hidden speakers. She met his eyes. "I'm scared of how much I already like being near you." The admission hung between them. Jiyeon exhaled slowly, as though she'd struck him. "Good. Because I haven't stopped thinking about your mouth since you apologized for spilling coffee on me." Heat flooded her face, then lower. She leaned forward. "Then why are we still talking about food?" He set the tongs down, reached across the narrow table and caught her chin with 2 fingers, tilting her face up. His thumb traced the edge of her lower lip, slow, deliberate. "Because if I kiss you right now, I won't stop." Her breath caught. "Promise?" The word barely left her lips before his mouth was on hers. It wasn't gentle. It was hunger wrapped in control, his hand sliding to the nape of her neck, fingers threading through her curls, angling her exactly where he wanted. She opened for him on a soft gasp. He tasted like soy and smoke and something darker, something addictive. She gripped his wrist, pulse hammering against his skin, and kissed him back with equal need. When they broke apart, both breathing hard, the dragon tattoo on, his forearm seemed to flex with every ragged inhale. Then the door to the restaurant slammed open. 3 men in dark jackets pushed past the host, eyes scanning until they locked on Jiyeon. The leader barked something sharp in Korean. Asani caught only the venom in the tone. Jiyeon stood in one fluid motion, placing himself between her and the intruders. "Stay behind me," he said, calm but lethal. The confrontation was swift and ugly. Low threats, a shoved chair, one man reaching inside his jacket. Jiyeon moved like liquid violence, disarming the first with a twist, slamming the second against a wall with forearm to throat. The third hesitated, then backed toward the exit when Jiyeon's gaze promised murder. Silence crashed back in. Jiyeon turned to her, breathing steady now, but his eyes were wild. A thin line of blood trickled from a split knuckle. "I'm sorry you saw that." Asani rose on unsteady legs, closed the distance, and pressed her palm to his cheek, right over the old scar. "I'm not running." He covered her hand with his, pressing it harder against his skin. "You should." "But I won't." Outside, rain had started. In the car, he didn't start the engine right away. Instead, he reached over, threaded his fingers through hers, and brought her knuckles to his lips. Soft, reverent, a stark contrast to the violence minutes earlier. "Next time," he murmured against her skin, "I'll make sure nothing interrupts us." Asani's voice was barely a whisper. There better be a next time. The aftermath of the restaurant clash left Asani reeling. She'd insisted Jion drop her home immediately, the kiss still burning on her lips like a brand. But sleep evaded her, images flashing, his fluid takedown of those men, the dragon tattoo flexing with lethal grace. Who was he, really? The next day, her phone lit up with his call. She ignored it twice before answering. "We need to talk," she said flatly. "Agreed. My place. I'll send a car." His penthouse overlooked Central Park, all sleek glass and minimalist lines, black marble floors, abstract Korean ink paintings on the walls. Jion waited in a fitted shirt, sleeves rolled, nursing a whiskey. No scar hidden now, it gleamed under the low lights like a badge. "Asani," he started, voice rough. "Last night." "Who are you?" she interrupted, pacing. "Those men weren't random. You fought like you've done it 100 times. Import-export? Bull. Tell me the truth or I walk." He set the glass down, eyes darkening. "You don't want this truth. I deserve it." She stepped closer, chin lifted defiantly. Jion exhaled, running a hand through his hair. "My family runs operations, underground, protection, deals, territory. I'm the head now. The mafia calls me the dragon." Mafia. The word hit like ice water. Asani's mind spun. Rivals, violence, the scar's origin. "And you dragged me into it? For what, a thrill?" "No." He closed the distance in 2 strides, cupping her face. "For you. From that first spill you saw through me. No fear, just fire." Her breath hitched, traitorous heat pooling despite the anger. "This could kill me." "It won't." His thumb stroked her cheeks, eyes fierce. "I'd burn it all down first." The air crackled. Asani's resolve cracked. She surged up, capturing his mouth in a kiss that was equal parts fury and need. He groaned, backing her against the wall, hands sliding down her sides, gripping her hips to lift her slightly. She wrapped her legs around him instinctively, nails digging into his shoulders as their tongues tangled, urgent and deep. He broke away first, forehead against hers, breaths mingling. "Asani, stay." She searched his eyes, seeing vulnerability beneath the power. The boy from Seoul who'd inherited shadows. "One condition," she whispered, fingers tracing his scar. "No more secrets." "None," he vowed, sealing it with another kiss, slower this time, exploring every curve of his lips. But as they sank onto the couch, tangled in each other's arms, Asani couldn't shake the whisper of doubt. Loving him meant dancing with danger. Could her heart survive the fall? Asani woke to the slow drag of Jion's fingertips along her spine. Lazy, possessive circles that made her arch into him without thinking. Last night had been more than sex. It had been surrender. He'd pinned her wrists above her head, stared into her eyes like he was memorizing the exact moment she broke apart beneath him, then whispered her name like it was the only word he still believed in. Afterward, even in sleep, his arm stayed locked around her waist, anchoring her to his chest as though letting go would unravel them both. She turned in his hold now, nose brushing the hollow of his throat. His pulse hammered against her lips. "You're awake," he murmured, voice gravel rough. "Couldn't sleep with you looking at me like that even when your eyes are closed." He exhaled a shaky laugh, rolled them so she was beneath him, forearms braced on either side of her head. "I keep thinking if I blink you'll disappear, like none of this is real." She cupped his jaw, thumb tracing the scar that had once seemed like a warning. Now it felt like proof he'd survived worse than this. "I'm real. I'm here, and I'm not going anywhere." His mouth crashed down on hers, desperate, almost punishing. He kissed her like a man drowning, and she was air. Hands roamed with bruising need, gripping her thigh, sliding up to cradle her breast, thumb circling until she whimpered into his mouth. When he finally pulled back, his forehead rested against hers, breaths jagged. "I love you," he said, the words torn out like they hurt. "I've never said that and meant it this much. It terrifies me." Tears stung her eyes. "Then be terrified with me, because I love you too, Jion. Enough to stay, even when every instinct screams run." He kissed her again, slower, deeper, like he was sealing a vow directly onto her soul. The phone shattered the moment. Jion read the message, color drained from his face. "Warehouse breach. I have to go." "Take me." "No." He cupped her cheeks, thumbs wiping at the dampness already gathering under her eyes. "You stay. You lock every door. You breathe. Promise me you'll breathe until I come back." She nodded, throat too tight for words. He kissed her once more, hard, bruising, tasting of salt and fear, then left. Silence pressed in. 4 hours later, the penthouse door exploded inward. Asani barely had time to scream before gloved hands seized her. A rag clamped over her face, the world spun into chemical black. She woke to pain, wrists raw from zip ties, cheek throbbing where someone had struck her, cold concrete biting into her knees. Kai loomed above her, phone already recording. "Say hi to your boyfriend, princess. He's got 30 minutes before I start carving pieces off you." He sent the video. Jion arrived at the abandoned pier soaked in rain and blood, fresh cuts on his knuckles, shirt torn from fighting through Kai's outer guards. He stepped into the open bay doors alone. His eyes found Asani instantly. She was on her knees now, hands bound behind her, lips split, one eye swelling shut. But when she saw him, her chin lifted, defiant, tears streaming silently. Not tears of fear, tears of rage and love so fierce it burned. Jion's face crumpled for one heartbeat, pure, naked devastation, then locked into something colder than death. "Kai, look at you." The dragon on his knees for a waitress. Pathetic. Jion didn't answer. He walked forward slowly, deliberately, shedding every piece of restraint he'd ever worn. The fight was merciless. He broke the first man's arm with a sickening crack, took a knife to the shoulder, didn't even flinch. Slammed Kai face first into a steel beam, then dropped to one knee in front of Asani, cutting her free with shaking hands. The second his arms closed around her, she shattered. Sobs tore out of her, ugly, wrenching, as she clung to him, face buried in his neck. I thought you wouldn't make it." "I will always make it to you," he rasped, voice breaking. One hand cradled the back of her head. The other pressed her so tightly to his chest she could feel every frantic beat of his heart. "I'm sorry. I'm so fucking sorry." She pulled back just enough to look at him, blood-streaked, trembling, eyes glassy with unshed tears. "I love you. Don't you dare die on me. Not ever. He kissed her then, right there in the middle of the carnage, desperate and raw, tasting blood and tears and survival. His hands shook as they framed her face, hers fisted in his torn shirt like she could hold him to this earth by sheer will. I won't, he vowed against her mouth. I swear on everything I am, I won't. Outside, sirens wailed in the distance. He lifted her into his arms, cradling her like something infinitely precious, and carried her through the rain to the car. Neither spoke on the drive. They didn't need to. Their hands stayed locked together, white-knuckled, unbreakable, the entire way home. Jiyeon carried Asani straight from the car to the bathroom, her body limp against his chest, still trembling from adrenaline crash and cold. He set her on the marble counter like she might shatter if he moved too fast. Water roared from the shower head, steam curled around them. He peeled the ruined dress away with shaking hands. Every rope burn on her wrists, every bruise blooming purple on her ribs, every shallow cut. Each one carved fresh guilt into his face. I should have been faster. I should have seen it coming. I should have seen it coming. I should have. Stop! Asani caught his wrists, forced his eyes to hers. Tears streamed down her cheeks, mixing with shower spray. You came. You bled for me. You carried me out. That's enough. It's not. He dropped his forehead to hers, breaths ragged. I promised you safety. Instead, I gave you nightmares. She cupped his jaw, thumbs wiping at the blood crusted under his eye. Then make it right. Right now. Look at me and see that I'm still here. That I still want this, you, more than I want safe. Jiyeon exhaled like the sound was torn from his lungs. He kissed her then, slow, devastating, tasting of copper and salt and everything he'd almost lost. The kiss deepened until it hurt. She clung to him, nails scoring his shoulders, needing the proof of his heartbeat against hers. They sank to the shower floor together, water pounding their backs. He pulled her into his lap, arms banding around her so tightly she could barely breathe. She buried her face in his neck and let the sobs come. Ugly, wrenching sounds she'd held back in the warehouse. I was so scared, she choked out. Not of dying without telling you again that I love you, that I choose you. Every shadow, every scar, every risk, I choose it all. Jiyeon's shoulders heaved once. He pressed his lips to her temple, voice barely audible over the water. I don't deserve that. But God help me, I'm too selfish to let you go. Then don't. She lifted her head, eyes fierce through tears. Promise me something harder than walking away. Promise you'll fight for us. Not with fists, with truth. No more secrets, no more deciding what I can handle. We face it together, or we fall apart. He searched her face for a long, aching moment. Then he nodded, once, decisive. Together, he vowed. I'm meeting the council tomorrow. I tell them I'm out. Full severance. If they push back, his jaw tightened. I'll burn every bridge myself. I won't let this life touch you again. Asani's breath hitched. You'd give up everything? I already have. He took her hand, pressed it over the dragon tattoo on his chest, right above his heart. You're everything now. She kissed the ink, then his collarbone, then his mouth, soft at first, then hungry, desperate to erase the distance fear had carved between them. His hand slid down her back, reverent, memorizing every curve as though he might never get another chance. Later, dried and wrapped in his oversized robe, They lay in bed facing each other. No space between them. Fingers laced, foreheads touching. "Tell me we get tomorrow," she whispered. Jiyeon brushed a damp curl from her cheek. "We get every tomorrow. Rainy days in the kitchen. You are teaching me salsa. I am teaching you how to make my grandmother's kimchi jjigae. Lazy mornings. No guns, no running, just us." A small, broken laugh escaped her. "You'll burn the stew." "I'll burn 1,000 stews if it means coming home to you." She smiled, small, real, radiant through the exhaustion. "Deal." He pulled her closer until their heartbeats synced again. Outside, the storm howled. Inside, something fragile and fierce began to heal. Jiyeon walked into the warehouse alone, rain dripping from his coat, the black folder in his hand feeling heavier than any gun he'd ever carried. The elders sat like stone statues. Jae and the younger lieutenant stood behind them, eyes burning with betrayal. The air smelled of rust, old blood, and the faint, lingering spice of the pouch Asani had pressed into his palm before he left. He placed the folder down without ceremony. "I'm done," he said, voice steady, heart fracturing. "Everything transfers tonight. No conditions, no revenge. I walk. You keep what's left." Elder Park's gaze was ice. "You throw away 3 generations for a woman who doesn't even know what this life costs?" Jiyeon met his eyes. "She knows. She paid tonight. Bruises, blood, terror, because of me. And she still chose to stand beside me in the rain. That's worth more than any territory." Jae stepped forward, voice venomous. "She's not one of us. She never will be. You're throwing away your name, your blood for—" Jiyeon's hands shot out, fingers closing around Jae's throat before the sentence finished. "Say her name with disrespect one more time," he whispered, lethal and low. "And I end your line right here." The room froze. Jiyeon released him. Jae staggered back. "I'm not asking permission," Jiyeon continued. "I'm telling you. The dragon dies tonight. The man who loves her lives." Elder Park studied him for a long, agonizing moment. Then he spoke quietly. "We built this on loyalty. You break it now." "I'm not breaking loyalty," Jiyeon said. "I'm choosing a deeper one." He turned to leave. Jae screamed. "You don't get to walk." Gunshots cracked, 3 in rapid succession. Jiyeon spun, shoving Elder Park down as bullets tore through the air where the old man had stood. Jae fired wildly, face twisted in rage. Jiyeon drew his own weapon in one fluid motion, returning fire, 2 precise shots. Jae's shoulder exploded. He dropped. The younger men rushed forward. Then the warehouse doors burst open. Asani ran in, rain-soaked, eyes wild, the driver trailing behind her with a drawn pistol. She'd heard the shots from the car. She'd refused to stay safe. "Jiyeon!" Her voice cracked the chaos like lightning. Every head turned. She stood there, dress clinging to her, hair plastered to her face, chest heaving, looking small against the violence, yet impossibly fierce. Jae, bleeding on the floor. "Look, the little waitress thinks she belongs here." Asani walked straight to Jiyeon, never flinching at the gun still raised. She placed her hand over his heart, right above the dragon tattoo, fingers trembling but sure. "You promised me tomorrow," she said. "You promised rainy days and kimchi jjigae and dancing in the kitchen. You promised me us. If you die here, you break that promise, and I will never forgive you." Tears streamed down her face, mixing with rain. Ji-yeon's gun hand shook, the first time it had ever faltered. He looked at her, really looked, and something inside him shattered open. "I'm sorry," he whispered. "I thought I could protect you by finishing this alone." "You can't," she said, tears falling faster. "Because protecting me means coming home to me. Alive, every night. That's the only protection I want." Elder Park rose slowly, watching them. The remaining men lowered their weapons one by one. Park spoke into the silence. "Go, boy. Take your woman. Build the life you stole from this one. We won't follow. But know this, the door is not closed forever. If the world ever turns on you again, family remembers." Ji-yeon stared at the elder, stunned. Asani squeezed his hand. "Let's go home." He dropped the gun, let it clatter to the concrete. Then he pulled her into his arms, hard, desperate, burying his face in her wet hair. His shoulders shook with silent sobs he'd never allowed himself before. "I almost lost everything," he choked out. "I almost lost you." "You didn't," she whispered, clinging to him just as fiercely. "We're still here. We're still us." He kissed her then, right in the middle of the blood and broken glass, deep and raw and trembling, tasting salt and rain and survival. She kissed him back like she could pour every unspoken fear and hope into his mouth. When they finally broke apart, foreheads pressed together, breathing the same air, Ji-yeon looked at the elders one last time. "Thank you," he said, quiet, real. Then he lifted Asani into his arms, cradling her against his chest, and carried her out into the storm. No shots followed. No cars pursued. Only the sound of rain on metal roofs and the pounding of two hearts finally free. In the car, she curled into his lap, face against his throat. "Promise me again," she whispered. He pressed his lips to her temple. "Every tomorrow, every rainy day, every fight, every quiet morning, you and me, forever." She smiled through fresh tears. Forever. The city lights blurred behind them. Ahead, nothing but open road, and the beginning of everything they'd almost lost. 6 months later, the small Hudson Valley house woke to the soft patter of early spring rain on the tin roof. A gentle percussion that blended with the low sizzle of kimchi jjigae bubbling on the stove. The kitchen air was thick and warm, sharp fermented tang of gochujang and napa cabbage mingling with the deep smoky sweetness of Nigerian jollof rice simmering beside it. Steam curled upward in lazy spirals, carrying threads of Scotch bonnet heat and toasted sesame oil that made the whole space feel alive. Asani stood barefoot on the cool hardwood, toes curling against the grain, hips swaying unconsciously to the mellow Afrobeat drifting from her phone on the windowsill. The bass thrummed low in her chest like a second heartbeat. She stirred the jjigae with a wooden spoon, the rich red broth clinging to the grain, releasing little bursts of garlic, ginger, and dried anchovy that made her mouth water, even though she'd tasted it 3 times already. Ji-yeon watched from the island, sleeves rolled to his elbows, forearms corded as he sliced carrots into perfect matchsticks. The knife made soft, rhythmic thwacks against the cutting board, steady, almost meditative. Raindrops streaked the window behind him, turning the green world outside into soft watercolor smears. He hadn't shaved in 2 days. The faint shadow along his jaw caught the morning light and made the old scar gleam like polished silver. She caught his gaze and smiled, slow and knowing. "You're supposed to be helping, not staring." He set the knife down with deliberate care. the blade clicking once against wood. "I can multitask." He crossed a small space in 3 steps, wrapped his arms around her from behind, and pulled her back against his chest. His heartbeat thudded steady through his thin cotton shirt, syncing with hers. Warm hands splayed over the gentle curve of her belly, still small enough to hide under loose sweaters, but already precious. He pressed his lips to the sensitive spot behind her ear. She felt the faint scratch of stubble, the heat of his breath, the quiet inhale he always took when he breathed her in. "Especially when the view is this good," he murmured, voice gravel rough from sleep and something deeper. Asani leaned into him, head tipping back against his shoulder. The scent of cedar cologne clung to his skin, now softened by domestic mornings, no longer sharp with gun oil or night air, just clean and familiar. "Flattery won't get you out of dish duty." "Worth a try." He kissed down the side of her neck, slow and deliberate, teeth grazing just enough to make her shiver and press back harder against him. His thumbs traced lazy circles over her stomach. "I still wake up sometimes thinking this is a dream." No sirens outside the window. No burner phone buzzing at 3 a.m. Just rain, and you, and the smell of our food on the stove. She turned in his arms, the spoon still in her hand dripping bread broth onto the floor. She set it aside, cupped his face with both palms. His skin was warm, faintly damp from the steam. Up close she could see the fine lines that had started at the corners of his eyes, laugh lines now, not tension lines. We earned every second of it. They had. The quiet ceremony 6 weeks earlier still lived in every sense memory. The cool silk of her white lace dress brushing her calves, the weight of coral beads warm against her collarbone, the faint floral sweetness of jasmine garlands her cousins had woven into her curls. Gion in his navy hanbok jacket, the silk rustling softly when he moved, his hands trembling just once when he slid the simple gold band onto her finger. They danced barefoot on cool grass under strings of fairy lights to a playlist that leaped from Burna Boy's velvet voice to IU's crystalline high notes. When the last guest left, he'd carried her over the threshold, rain tapping the porch roof like applause, and whispered against her lips, "This is forever, no takebacks." Now, in the soft kitchen light, he sank to one knee on the worn rug. The velvet box opened with a quiet snap. Inside, a thin gold band set with a single teardrop ruby, deep Nigerian fire, flanked by 2 tiny diamonds for Korean earth. "I already married you," he said, voice thick with everything he'd once kept locked away. "But I want to do it again. Every year, every decade. Until our children roll their eyes at how many times Appa renews vows with Elma." Asani's laugh cracked into a sob. Tears blurred him. She dropped to her knees too, hardwood cool against her shins, and framed his face. "Kids, plural?" He slid the ring beside the first one. Metal clicked softly against metal. "At least 2. One who dances like you, hips moving before they can walk. One who cooks like me, precise, patient. And maybe one who burns everything and makes us laugh until we cry." She pulled him down into a kiss, deep, slow, tasting salt from her tears, the faint spice still on his tongue from an earlier stolen bite of jjigae. When they parted, foreheads pressed together, breaths mingling in warm little clouds, she whispered, "I love you, Gyeon Kim. Dragon or not. Husband, soon to be father, mine." "I love you, Asani Reyes Kim." His smile was open, unguarded, eyes glassy. Waitress who spilled coffee on my life and turned it into something worth waking up for. My home. My forever. They ate at the small table by the window, feet tangled under the wood, rain tapping a gentle rhythm against the glass. The jjigae was perfect, silky, fiery, comforting. The jollof steamed with saffron and tomato richness. Between bites, they talked of nothing and everything. Whether the nursery should have pale sage walls or warm terracotta, whether their child would say Elma or Mama first, how they'd teach both Korean and Yoruba lullabies while the rice cooker hummed in the background. Later, curled on the couch with her head on his chest, she traced a dragon tattoo one last time, fingertip following every curve of ink. The skin there was warm, alive. "You kept it," she murmured. "Reminds me what I almost lost," he said softly, hand covering hers. "And what I gained instead." She kissed the ink, soft press of lips, lingering warmth. We both won. The house settled around them. Rain on the roof, faint crackle of the wood stove in the living room, their breathing slow and matched. No threats waited in the shadows. No phones rang with emergencies. Just the quiet, beautiful certainty of two lives finally woven into one home.